Alright, so here's just a quick little A/B test that I've made, and I've tried to get the volumes similar to similar levels so you can really hear what it does to the sound, and it's unbiased regarding the volume. Okay, so this is the default. This is enhanced. So it gives a little more warmth to the kicks, it gives a little more snap to the snares, a little more crackle to the hi-hats. And it's a real simple combinator that we can build pretty fast, and you can slap onto any kind of SSL channel, be it for your kicks, your snares, your hi-hats, percussive elements, whatever, and then tweak where necessary. Okay, so you want to build one like this? Good afternoon, morning, evening, or night. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dubious, and in this video we will be learning how to give our drums in Reason a little more oomph, alright? So I route this, I have a combinator set up that I can slap onto my kick SSL channel, my snares, my hi-hats, and I tweak where necessary, maybe to give the kick a little more warmth, maybe to give the hi-hats a little more crackle, that kind of stuff, okay? So I'm going to show you the combinator that I've built for myself, and then after that we will build it together. Well, it's going to be slightly different, but I'll explain why. So first things first, I have a Polarizer that I like to use for some New York style compression. So for a kick, let's say I put it on low pass 24. Then I will turn down the filter until I filter out all the high end of the sound. I'll squash it, so I'll compress it a little, and then I will blend in the sound from dry to wet until I have the warmth that I want in the low end. Or at least a little bit of a boosted low end, alright? So after that I go into a tape emulator by AIRWINDOWS. Now AIRWINDOWS, they make, well, I should say he makes a lot of great free VSTs, be it tape emulation, final emulation, but he also has like bass saturators. They're all free. He has, I want to say hundreds, but definitely go check him out. So Chris at AIRWINDOWS, he makes videos for every VST that he makes. Where he explains how he coded it, or at least how he built it, and how it works, and how you can use it most effectively. It's great stuff. Once I found him, I just got lost in all the different kind of VSTs that he built. So I suggest that, but we will not be using this. We will be using something else, just so that you can build this entire combinator without having to buy anything, without having to download anything. Okay. So next up is a Transient Shaper. Now in Reason itself, there is no Transient Shaper in the effects, but the Kong actually has a Transient Shaper as an effect. So I like to use that. After that I go into a maximizer just to limit the sound a little, really push my sound to the limit, and then maybe even soft clip it if I want to. And then I have a SYNAPSE GQ7, which is a great equalizer that I prefer to the Spectrum EQ because it just has a little more control. It has more sharp bends if you want, more sharp filters if you want. It has more precise control over all your band EQing, and it has some great shelving as well. Okay, now like I said, we will be building something very similar but not exactly the same, because you might not have the SYNAPSE GQ7, which is about $100 in the propeller head store, I believe, and you might not have downloaded it, and you might not want to download it. So I'm gonna build a rack together with you that does a very similar thing, but you won't need to download anything. Okay, so at first I had the automatic retro transformer instead of the 2-tape as a tape emulator, but I figured out that once you turn the dry wet knob anything in between 0 to 100, you might get really horrible phasing issues in the mid-range of your sound, and I guess you don't want that. Okay, so we're not going to use that. Then I thought maybe we can use a scream distortion, turn that on tape, turn down the damage, and then use it like this. But it's a little, scream gets a little crunchy real fast, and you might not want to do that either if you're just trying to boost your drums a little. So what I thought we can use is the SOFTUBE saturation knob. So this is a free rock extension that you can download from Propeller Heads. You might already have it. I don't know if it gets automatically downloaded anymore, but if you don't, you can just download it for free, and it adds some great saturation. And you can keep your low end clean, or you can keep your high end clean, whatever you want, whatever you need. So we're going to use that. And then at last, instead of the SYNAPSE GQ7, we're just going to add an equalizer here to add on some precision if the Spectrum EQ isn't precise enough for us. Okay, so I'm going to just delete this combinator real quick, and I'll show you how I built it. So first things first, grab combinator that will be in your utilities. Grab a combinator, drag it in, and hold down shift before you release it, because then it doesn't get automatically routed into a mix channel. And we will name that, let's name it drum enhancer. And then first things first, we will add a pulverizer in there. So the pulverizer, there's a few settings that you might want to change. You might want to turn off the filter and turn down the peak, which is like the resonance. Turn that down completely so that whenever you do use it, it doesn't get filtered immediately and doesn't have like this weird resonance on the top end, which you might not want. Okay, so just turn that off. And one thing I want to note about the pulverizer is it does add some volume to the main to the total sound. It adds like about 20% of volume if I want to leave this knob, but I usually just go with it, and if it's too loud, if the end result of my sound is too loud in the mix, then I will turn it down here, right? Okay, so next up will be our SOFTUBE saturator, right here. That's off by default, good. Next up will be our Transient Shaper. So again, there is no Transient Shaper in our effects, but there is one in the Kong. So you go into your instruments, grab the Kong, drop it in there, and it will not be automatically routed, so we'll have to route this by hand. So hit tab to flip the rack, and let's see where this goes. So the saturation knob, the audio out goes into our combinators from devices right here. So we can disconnect this, and then from devices we will move that into our main audio out on the Kong drum designer. Okay, so that goes there, and then we want to have our audio out go from the saturation knob audio out into our Kong, but by default you won't see any audio inputs on the Kong because they are hidden underneath show drum and effects right here. So if you hit that, it's the same button here. If you hit that, then you will see audio input here. Okay, so we're gonna route our audio out through there, and then all the way at the end you have the master effects, and then we will add the Transient Shaper on here. Okay, now next up will be our maximizer. So that's just a M class maximizer real quick, and then last but not least add an equalizer, and that's about it. So I might want to name all your devices. So let's call this new rock compression saturator Transient Shaper for the Kong. Maximizer will be called, I'll just call it maximizer, and the EQ we'll just call it EQ, and then we can save this combinator for later use. So let's hit save all the way at the top, and then I will name it Drum Enhancer Vanilla because it has all the vanilla instruments in, or all the vanilla effects that come with Reason. And that's that. Oh, one thing I almost forgot, be sure to bypass it. At least I like to bypass it first, because then if I load it onto any rack or any chain, then it won't affect my sound until I unbypass it, then I want to hear it. Okay, so you might want to bypass it and then hit save. All right, so that's that. So just to let you hear how it sounds and how I use it, and like show you how I use it, I have a little drum pattern set up here. So I have a kick and a snare right here, and some hi-hats go in here. And one thing to notice, I did split my kicks and my snares into two different SSL channels, so I have more control over the drum enhancer if I put it on here. I have control over it for my kicks and my snares separately, because I do usually want to affect them a wee bit differently. All right, so let's affect the kick first. Let's enhance the kick first. So you grab your drum enhancer and you drag it underneath, and you hold down shift before you release, because if you hold down shift it doesn't get automatically routed, and we want to route that in. So we want to route it into the insert FX portion of our mix channel. So you open up insert FX, and then you see it coming here, and then you route this through the combinator right here. So to devices goes to the combinator, and from devices comes from the combinator. All right, so let's flip the rack back around, and then we will see what we can do to really pump this sound up a little bit. Let's unbypass it. So you see everything is actually turned off right now, but you already hear a little bit of a volume difference. That is because of the pulverizer right here. Okay, so like I said, I like to use the pulverizer for some New York style compression. So we will turn the filter on to low pass, filter out all the high end, and then slowly squash the sound. not too much. There we go. And then we will blend the sound in slowly, just to give the low end a little more power. Alright, that's good. Now for the saturation, we want to keep the low end clean and then add some saturation on the low mids. Alright, so you're going to turn it to keep low and then slowly turn up the saturation knob while listening what it does to your sound. That's good. And for the transient shaper, I think there's a little bit too long of a tail on the kick, so I could turn down the length here. I could turn down the length here, but for the sake of the tutorial, I will do it with the transient shaper, just a bit, to make the sound a little tighter, right? So after that, if it goes into our limiter, so I'm actually limiting quite hard here already, so I want to turn down the input gain until it just gets limited a tiny amount. There we go. And then last but not least, we will go into our spectrum EQ, so press F2 for your spectrum EQ. And then I want to grab out a ton of the high end. Something like this. And then maybe for good measure, we will grab our M-class equalizer and go all the way to the lowest frequencies and just cut out like that, the low end. Just to clean up the bass a little bit. There we go. So let me A/B that. I'm going to leave the spectrum EQ on, but let me A/B that so that you can hear the difference in power of the sound. Okay. So this is with, and this is without. See, it's not just louder, but it gets a little warmer. It gets a little more harmonics. You can see those here as well. See the difference? So yeah, so that's that for the kicks. Now let's go into our snares. Oh, you might want to close this back up so your rack doesn't get super huge. Let's go to the snares. I'm going to solo those. And then do the same thing. We grab our drum enhancer, hold down shift before you release it, and then route it into the show insert effects of our snare channel. Okay. So let's check out the frequencies here real quick. So you can see the main hit comes in at about 160. So let's put just above 160. So let's take our New York style compression and let's grab a high pass filter and then put that on about 160 hertz. 161 is fine as well. And then unbypass it and we will see how it sounds. And slowly squash the sound. Maybe turn down the release a bit. Make it snappy. And then we will blend it in slowly. Okay, good. Now add some saturation. That's good. Want a little more attack, a little less decay to keep the snares really super snappy. It's good, that's all I need. And then I want to hit the limiter just by a tiny amount again, so that I'm sure I'm at the top of my volume range. Too much. There we go. And then, oh, last but not least, let's get out all the low end, so that we're sure it doesn't clash with the subs and the bass and all that kind of stuff, and the kick maybe even. All right, so one thing why I actually like to use the GQ7 equalizer, or at least have to double up with a M-class equalizer on the spectrum EQ, because even if I turn it all the way here, you'll see it has still a lot of low end noise coming through here. So let's put the frequency back here, and we will actually turn down the subs by using our M-class equalizer right here. Just a sub-region. And then add a low cut. And now it should be pretty clean at the bottom. Good. Now last but not least, let's grab the hi-hats, close these up again, solo out the hi-hats, and then we'll do the same little trick. So you grab your drum enhancer, hold down shift, and then load that, or at least route that into the insert FX from devices and to devices, from the mixer to the combinator. So let's check our frequencies again. So it seems to start at about 640. Let's start our New York style compression on about 500. So we'll high pass everything so that the low end gets taken out, and then turn our frequency to about 500, and then slowly squash the sound again. So I like to add some dirt to the hi-hats for a little crackle, and then again slowly blend that into the normal sound. So for the saturation now, we want to keep the highs. I think I want to keep the highs pretty clean because it's already getting distorted here, and then slowly add that in as well. And then add some attack to our transients. And I think we're hitting our limiter just fine. Oh, it's a little much maybe. So that's that. And that's all there's to it. So let me just bypass everything and then unbypass it, and then you can hear it real quick. Oh, that's the wrong one. Bypass, and let me unsolo this. So this is clear. Now let me turn them on. Oh, I forgot one thing, to actually EQ the hi-hats, so we can just do that right here. So again, you see here on my Spectrum EQ, you can see there's actually some low end information right here that you might not even want in your hi-hats, but it is here, which means if in the end you're mixing, trying to mix a track and you got a muddy low end, you got a muddy bass or a muddy kick and you don't know why, and there's low end information in your hi-hats, right? So it might sound crazy, but it might be there. So just be sure to take that all out if you don't want that. So I'm going to use the M-Class equalizer as well. Take that all out, and then maybe we want to give it a wee bit of a boost with our Spectrum EQ, and then take out the top end just a little bit, because it can get a little sharp otherwise, right? So that's that. So this is just an example of making a drum enhancer. You might want to add some things for yourself. Maybe you want to add a stereo emitter if you use that a lot. Maybe you want to add a reverb if you put that on separate drums. I usually route everything through a similar channel or through a parallel channel and then put my reverb on there. But however you work, you know, that might be your own way. You might have your own way for that. So that's that. I hope you learned something here. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll gladly answer them. If this helped you, give it a thumbs up, give me a subscribe if you want to see more technical kind of videos like this, because I want to make more presets and help people with their workflow in Reason. I got a video coming up on how to modernize the Tor, because I love the Tor as an instrument, but it doesn't have the beautiful shaping tools, like envelope shaping tools that like the Europa will have or the grain sample manipulator will have. So that's a video that's coming up soon. And thanks for watching and have a great day. See ya.